Hello and welcome to the WeYouMe State of the Network number 23. Today is the 9th of September and you're here with your host Harrison McLean, where we are going to talk all about the updates that have happened in the WeYouMe platform in the past 7 days. So let's jump right into it, but first, what is WeYouMe? WeYouMe is a protocol for blockchain social media with a decentralized exchange and a peer-to-peer marketplace. Users can make posts on boards, groups, or profiles and encrypt them to make them private. Businesses can create crypto assets to represent voting power and distribute revenue. Merchants can list products for sale and receive free and virtually instant payments from customers. Users earn rewards when they post valuable content, earn tips, and can charge micropayments to access premium content. Supernodes earn rewards for providing file storage through IPFS. And the WeYouMe protocol earns revenue by selling account memberships, post promotions, and by charging trading fees. Every interface can choose which content to display and how to sort it. The protocol itself has no censorship. Users can choose which identity to use for posting, either a profile account, persona account, or anonymously. And users and applications that create accounts for new users earn an ongoing share of the revenue from those users. So this week in the WeYouMe updates, we have the competitive analysis. A new document is being drafted that outlines how WeYouMe compares to other decentralized social media platforms and our go-to-market strategy. It will outline the major pros and cons of similar projects and lays out arguments in favor of WeYouMe, in addition to clarifying and structuring our initial rollout process. Next up, we have the Business Application Suite. So the Business and Application case has been updated and rebranded to the Business Application Suite. The 0 prefix that was used for the names of all of the businesses has now been replaced with new standalone names for each of the initial consortium companies. The document includes a new service that we'll be talking about later that will greatly accelerate the initial network effect and virality of WeYouMe, and that document will be released after the state of the network, and I'll be talking about that new business in the after party. Next up, we have the private seed asset. The user issued asset for the WeYouMe private seed round has been created, and it is WeYouMe, all of the letters there. And if you're interested in participating in the private seed round, then you can contact the team at harrison@weyoumi.io. And that does have a minimum investment associated with it of $50,000 US, and each WeYouMe is valued at $3. Next up this week, we have the development updates. So the testnet status, the testnet is up and running across multiple witness nodes. So that's just the testnet blockchain. And the rebranded chain, which uses WeYouMe asset names, is undergoing final testing and awaiting deployment. So the chain is running. What we're doing is working on the interface to engage with that. We've also been interviewing potential new members of the WeYouMe development team and overseeing office relocation options. The application status. The dev team has been working on the authentication server interface to enable the creation of accounts on the new blockchain. Bugs in the authentication application are being worked through to enable initial accounts to be used for paying for new account signups on the testnet chain. So essentially what that means is we are working out the process of allowing new users to create their own accounts from our web application. We're working out some of the problems that exist with private and public keys associated with generating a new chain, and that will be resolved in a timely manner. The testnet is currently live and accessible at the following seed nodes, and you can do a health check by going to peer.weyoumi.io/health. Next up this week, we have the thread review. So every week, WeYouMe makes a post to the Steam blockchain announcing the state of the network. And you can comment in the thread for myself to discuss those comments on the next week's state of the network. Comments can include questions, discussion topics, feedback, memes, our favorite, videos, or pictures. And the best comment in each week's thread will win 50 BitShares when they include their BitShares address. Very important. I can't send you BitShares if I don't know where to send them. So this week we're going to take a look through the Hangout thread of last week and see what we've got. Just going to the thread from last week. Yeah, so from now on we're going to be doing sort of a 7-day period of allowing comments and feedback on each week's thread, so that we have a bit more time for everybody to be able to see the updates and make some comments on the thread. And here we have last week's thread number 22. So we have all of the revenue model information and that one there. Okay, we have Discernente, I think. And he says it sounds like WeYouMe. Not quite, it's WeYouMe with a U sound. Then we have some more questions here. Platform seems nice. One more step to discover a world of infinite possibilities. That's interesting. I think I addressed this comment last week. People who become pioneers will be on the top easily, and then people who come in later will find it more difficult to be on the top, is I think what that one says. So that's largely the case with Steam. However, with WeYouMe, we'll be having a fairly consistent, in fact constant, issuance rate of MeCoin. So what that means is that the income of users at the start of the platform will be relatively equal with those who come in later. So it'll be divided between less users at the start, but as it goes forward, it will become it will become slightly more difficult to compete with the other users for the same MeCoin income. So that'll be the case to a small extent, but not to the same extent as Steam, which controls on the order of 70% of all of the Steam power. Definitely addressed this one last week. Is it possible to participate with less than the minimum investment? At this time, you can do that by purchasing the Zero asset from BitShares. And the private seed round is the way for large institutional investors to be able to gain exposure to the WeYouMe project. Then we have definitely a platform I'm looking forward to using from Maxwell95. And we have Mahek Vyas with Sir, I've signed up today and eagerly waiting for its opening. And some people that are amazed at the amount of Steam this has managed to earn. Spoiler alert, it was voting bots, guys. So voting bots are a significant issue on the Steam blockchain that most people are aware of, and I will be making full use of them to highlight the extent of this problem. So WeYouMe is an all-in-one platform with a complete package for its users. Yep, pretty simple there. So not a whole lot of questions. been put here. Then we have Chris Ike with a pretty important question. When will you convert Izira to WeYouMe? And when will the 20% bonus be distributed? So I think what you mean is the 20% of MeCoin issuance. And the answer to both of those questions is when the mainnet is released. So Izira and WeYouMe will be converted to WYM, which is the mainnet asset on the WeYouMe blockchain. And that will earn its appropriate share of the vesting of the issued MeCoin. And continuing to go through, we have a lot of flags. Okay, it doesn't appear like anyone really used their BitShares address this week. That is not at all fortunate. Alrighty, so it looks like no one used their BitShares address in any of their comments this week. So I will remind everybody, the best comment in the thread at the end of each week that has a BitShares address, very important, that has a BitShares address, will win 50 BitShares. So we'll move along to anything that's been brought up in the most recent thread, seeing as this one has not had the most engagement since last week. We'll see if anyone has got anything from today. So this week, what I did to change the thread is put about 7 dot points at the very top, answering the most common question that literally everyone asks literally every week, and that is, what makes WeYouMe better than Steam? So I put 7 answers at the very top of the post to answer that question quite a bit better. Then we have the updated outline, which only takes about 3 minutes to read, so people can go through that. And the rest of it is much the same. Then we have all the votes. And it looks like no one's got any questions or topics this week. Alrighty, so for those of you who would like to participate in the comment thread, it is very simple. All you need to do is post a question or topic idea or picture or meme with your BitShares address, and you can win 50 BitShares. Alright, so moving along to the next part of the state of the network, and that is our discussion topics. So first up in the discussion topics this week, we have social media and human psychology. So there was a very interesting podcast this week on Joe Rogan featuring Elon Musk, and one of the points that really resonated, pun very intended, resonated with me was his discussion about social media. What Elon Musk essentially said was that a lot of the problems with social media today are that it encourages people to project a false image of themselves, and it makes people feel bad about themselves whenever they sort of realize that their actual life doesn't add up or doesn't compare to the highlight reel of everyone else's. So it's a continuing competition to see who can look the happiest, when in actual fact a lot of the people who appear the happiest are actually quite sad. And he explained that social media, all the advances that have been made in the past few years, have essentially been trending towards the user experience aligning or resonating with the human limbic system. which is something that I thought was quite insightful. What he's basically saying is that social media continues to evolve with different projects, different products here and there, but the ones that have had the most impact and the ones that are the most successful are the ones that have the strongest and closest resonance with the human limbic system, the ones that cause different neurochemicals to be released, like dopamine and things like that, in response to social stimuli. The innovation that sort of pioneered the start of social media being ubiquitous everywhere is the advent of the notification, something that is pushed upon you, and it is something new for you. The combination of those two things, it's something new for you, is a major part of what makes social media so compelling to users. And the fact that when you open it and it basically is a random reward or a random payoff for following that stimuli, basically allows the human brain to form a pattern of following notifications and essentially becoming in tune with the human limbic system of stimuli and response. So things that match the human limbic system, that cause the right release of neurochemicals, are essentially what social media becomes. It becomes a projection of the internal human limbic system, and that is something that shows a favorable circumstance set, that shows that you are connected to other people, that shows that you have cool friends that are doing this, and it sort of gives you the fear of missing out on what other people are doing. And the fact that that is so prevalent is something that is probably not the best for society in large, like at large. So you see products that are sort of merging their way towards being as close to following the human limbic system as they can. And in many ways, that's not quite what benefits people. And we have Iron Monkey saying, I keep all notifications off. I certainly do a similar sort of thing. I keep them on silent. I can't stand the noises. And the idea that a lot of people actually leave the noises on and automatically reach for their phone and pick it up every time that something bings at them is something that hasn't made sense to me for the last 5 years. But apparently a lot of people still do that. So the sort of dopamine response trigger, or the engagement trigger, is something that is fundamentally invasive to the human condition. And that's a problem with social media that I think needs to be recognized a little bit more. So the next topic that we're going to talk about this week is merging social networks with economic networks. So up until the advent of cryptocurrency, it was fundamentally a hard problem to try and merge social networks with economic networks, or to have monetization at the individual level for content. The only way to do it was to have advertisements on a broad sheet of content, whether it was for news or for mainstream media with TV. There was no way to basically price specific information, because there were fundamental transaction costs that make it incredibly difficult to actually charge for media content. So what you end up with is a system where advertisers subsidize the free consumption of content, and that gives advertisers almost complete control over the nature of that content, because by refusing to continue subsidizing it, they can cut off its supply. And that fundamentally puts advertisers in control of content on social media, of content on the mainstream media particularly, and content in the vast variety of media situations that you have. And the way that WeYouMe solves this is by enabling social networks to merge with economic networks. This is one of the important problems solved by Steam, and what that is it enables the creators of content to actually be paid for their content with something that is not a direct subsidy from advertisers, and that is inflation-driven cryptocurrency that partially draws value from advertisers but not entirely. And the inability for this to be cut off by advertisers is the important part, because you remove creative control while still enabling value to transfer. So by allowing the market system to basically spread into social media, what you can have is pricing for information, or what that turns into in reality is WeYouMe posts effectively having a price associated with them that the network is paying for that content. So the network collectively pays for content out of inflation of the mecoin asset, and that inflation is backed by all of the different value streams coming in, all the different revenue streams. So it's a merger of all of the money and all the value coming in from revenue and being distributed around autonomously. So there's no more essentially excessive leverage applied to any one of the revenue stream actors. So if it's just advertisers, the advertisers can threaten to chop off their money or whatever. In the case that content goes on that is questionable to the advertisers' interests, they no longer have the ability to essentially have creative control under the WeYouMe model, because the network itself prices content in an asset that has value from its ability to advertise. So you enable a sort of distribution of advertising revenue to flow to the entire network instead of to specific content creators. So what this essentially does is, by pricing each individual piece of content, you enable something that has not been possible for many decades, and that is to solve the local knowledge problem for social media content. So the local knowledge problem is something that is an important part of economics, and it states that when you have a price system, you effectively aggregate knowledge about the state of the economy and you represent it with the price of every object based on supply and demand. When you have something that can't use a market system in order to basically value itself, you have to depend on something else. And prior to cryptocurrency, that was just plain and simple advertising. But what that doesn't do is it doesn't solve the local knowledge problem. It doesn't tell you how much each individual person values each individual piece of content. All it does is sort of distribute it purely through views. There's no user agency on where their share of the value gets distributed to. So by allowing everybody to vote for how content gets rewarded, you effectively allow everyone to put a price by voting on content so that that individual creator is individually rewarded for their contribution without relying on an external subsidy like advertising. So by merging the two together, social networks and economic networks together, you can have three interlapping or overlapping network effects all adding onto each other. So no more there's no more barrier between someone's social network and their economic network. You basically have the banking system and social media rolled into one censorship resistant open source protocol. There is so many networking effects that happen when you can combine money together with communication, because until today those things have been separate, or until the last couple of years, not today specifically, until this project or other social media type projects, there has been a fundamental separation between how you send money and how you send information. And by merging those two together, you have something that can piggyback off of both economic networks and social networks, and can grow at the speed of both combined. So imagine how fast Bitcoin would have grown if it had a social media application built into it from the start. The answer is much faster, because economic networks can only grow as fast as people are willing to invest in them. Whereas social media doesn't require an upfront investment or any cost. It only requires that users participate with their time and their effort. So with that said, we'll move on to the next topic, and that is WeYouMe interface and application incentives. So it's important to include in the protocol a tangible reward for the operators of all interfaces. So the WeYouMe team will not be running all the interfaces. We'll be running the first and main ones, but everyone will be able to access forks of these interfaces and actually create their own interface. And the people who do that will actually be able to earn rewards by showing and selling promoted posts and memberships. So an important part of what happened with the BitTorrent protocol struggles, or the file sharing protocol struggles back in the earlier days of the internet, the early 2000s. One of the major problems was trying to monetize BitTorrent or file sharing protocols. It couldn't really be done because the monetization aspect had to be separate from the protocol. There was no way to actually pay people for seeding files. There was no way to directly pay users for contributing positively and disincentivize them from just leeching off of others. And BitTorrent solved this by having a throttling system whereby users that didn't return the upload speed that they were given would actually get throttled by all the other seeds. So that provided a disincentive for people to make clients that simply leached the information and didn't upload it back. So this is essentially the early application of game theory to try and make sure that people shared content correctly. Now the same thing is true of a lot of cryptocurrency dApps. What they're doing is they're trying to monetize an interface that is open source using a token without realizing that everybody can simply fork whatever they're doing with their interface and take their token out. They're running an interesting game where they have this cognitive dissonance in their heads where they think that their open source decentralized application is going to be used by everyone with their token, except when there's no actual incentive against people just forking the dApp and making it work for free. How WeYouMe solves this. So what would be theoretically possible is someone to just fork the WeYouMe interface and then take all of the promoted posts out without needing to have a membership. So how we solve this is actually by compensating the operators of interfaces with a proportion of the revenue from promoted posts and from memberships that they actually sell. So every time you use a third-party interface, that interface will actually nominate itself as the interface for your transaction, and they will receive a portion of all of the promoted post revenue that is derived from your account. So every time you essentially buy a promoted post, 20% of that will go to the interface that actually sold it to you, or that acted as the intermediary for selling it. So this makes sure that interface operators always have a financial incentive to actually displaying ads in their interface and ensuring that the monetization system is not just chopped out, just like BitTorrent protocols were. So what that means is there is an individual incentive for every interface to actually follow the rules, to actually show ads to users that aren't members, and there's also an extreme incentive to take the ads off for users that are members, because they receive a portion of memberships too. and that's much more consistent income that is better for an interface than just a portion of promoted posts. So there has to be a positive direct marginal benefit to the interface to actually following the same rules as the WeYouMe.io interface. So we have that embedded in the protocol instead of relying on other layers on top to actually run the monetization. That is all going to be included in the base layer. So lastly, we have the last topic, which is a protocol for evolving and competing interfaces. So what this all comes together to build out of these three topics is WeYouMe is fundamentally an open source protocol for anyone to make their own social media platform. There's going to be competition between different interfaces to be able to closely match the human limbic system and drive the best possible user experience in order to gain the most users and the most subscribing members and the most engagements on promoted posts and things like that. So they will have very aligned interests in terms of sharing information across the protocol because they'll all benefit from having each other's content on the blockchain. While at the same time competing within each other for new user subscriptions and for selling promoted posts and memberships to users. So the interfaces that are best able to convert free users, or first able to get free users, and then convert those users to paying members, they will earn the most. And they will compete to gain members over each other. So what there will be is essentially an ever-evolving ecosystem of competing interfaces to the WeYouMe protocol, such that each one of them all follow the same economic incentives to operate this blockchain as a decentralized autonomous corporation, as a layer between all the interfaces. And what it does is it reduces massively, it massively reduces the incentive for any one of them to fork the chain. Because why would they fork the chain and start the network effect again when they could actually earn for making a new interface? When they can earn more by cooperating than they can earn by forking the chain and starting again, like is the case with Steam in many cases. The massive pool of Steam held by Steam at .inc was an artifact of their lack of an ICO. It was an artifact of them essentially needing to have maximum possible control over this experiment, because it was an experiment back then, but the experiment is over. This technology works, it just needs to be economically evolved. And by having interfaces that can actually earn for performing better, for providing a better user experience, attracting more members to use the same chain, then we will see something that can take not only Steam, not only Graphene, but the entire human, social, and economic networking graph to the next level. And with that said, we'll take some questions. We have one from Shubs, who says, Whaleshares also has a Steam kind of site. You're exactly right, Whaleshares does have a fork of Steam. There might be new upcoming competitors in the future. I guarantee there will be, because this technology is just waiting to go mainstream. So will Azira be able to handle the competition? It's not only my belief that the answer to that question is yes. I'm also going to explain in detail the reasons for that answer in the document that I'll next be releasing, the competitive analysis, which will go in depth into as many blockchain social media projects as I could find, research what makes them good, what makes them bad, and why WeYouMe will outshine them. So that document's going to be coming out in a few weeks. I have begun writing it in the last couple of days. Jason came up with the great idea of, instead of me having to answer why is WeYouMe better than something else, insert something else every time it comes up, just point people to a document that says this is why it's better than this, this is why it's better than that, this is why it's better than that. Which is a great idea, which I'm going to put into the next document, the competitive analysis, coming out in the next few weeks. And with that said, we'll move on to the next part of the Hangout. But first, we'll check if anyone has any other questions. So before we move on to the Twitter competition this week, does anyone have any other questions that they'd like to bring up? What questions do you guys have for me this week? Very good, Chubbs. Whale shares will definitely be on there. One of my favorite graphene-based projects, started by a fantastic guy, Fuzzy. If you're out there, Fuzzy, absolutely well done with whale shares. Made a lot of important changes to Steam, particularly in the interface, by making downvoting no longer available in the interface. I disagree with that, but I can see where it's coming from. And additionally, by showing people's voting record on their profiles, which is actually available in an extension to Steam, but it essentially forces you to share content to your blog every time you upvote it, to essentially weed out people who are going to continually upvote a lot of things without putting a lot of thought into it, or have an automated service do that for them. So it provides some sort of social disincentives to voting poorly. What it also plans to have is a lot of community development to enable blockchain share drops onto their vested asset called Whale Stake. It's going to be in the competitive analysis. Great project. Obviously not quite on the level of ambition as we're going for, but a nonetheless great project. Okay, so we'll move on to the Twitter competition for this week. And if I recall correctly, we had some very interesting answers this week. Okay, so in our competition entries, we have Mariana Arevalo with "My first event at WeYouMe will definitely be a launch party for the Hispanic community of WeYouMe." Very good idea there. And we have Maria Ballesteros with "My first event would be to talk about the opportunities the platform offers and invite all my friends to invest in it." Ooh, straight to the point there. And I think that's actually getting into last week there. Okay, so we've had 2 entries, and we will of course check the Discord in case anyone's entries have been shadow banned. Yep, shadow banning is absolutely a major problem on Twitter, and we obviously route around it by allowing users to link to their entries in Discord, so Jack Dorsey can shove it, ladies and gentlemen. We've got that one there. Sandra's. Okay, it looks like this one hasn't quite come through. It's Mariana. And Xavier Nino. Oh, I tell you what's happened. He hasn't put the underscore onto the Twitter name. That's partially my bad. So the WeYouMe handle has an underscore at the end of it. And Xavier Nino said, "My first WeYouMe event would be about the, it says, sex diverse community. Because this community is important to me." I'm not sure exactly which one you're talking about there. But that is very interesting. So we'll have a look into Sandra's comment. And whoa, okay, here we go. So this has been unfortunately shadow banned. This didn't show up in my mentions at all. My first event in WeYouMe would be about the scope that our projects can, I think that's supposed to be can have in WeYouMe. This would allow a projection and the development of a plan to achieve success together. Very good answer there. That has 80 retweets and 614 likes. Very good. That's looking like a winner for this week. Just need to... oh, yep. It's... yep. Been shadow banned or temporarily restricted, it says. That is unfortunate. Okay, so let's head back to the mentions just for a second here. Okay, so these two, yep, so that's looking like 600 likes and about 80 retweets for Sandra G89. Pretty sure that's our winner for this week, but we'll just check this one to be sure. Oh, hang on, no, this one. Didn't check the stats on this one. Yep, so close, yet so far this one's got 160 with 300 likes. You forgot the underscore on WeYouMe. That'll be how they get you. Yep, tag. Yep. So it's Sandra G, I think, has it with about 600 likes. And they're restricting the whole account, locking it all down. That is no good. There it is, 80 retweets, 600 likes. Our winner for this week is Sam, with Sandra G89 as the bitch-ass name, I'm pretty sure. There we go. Sandra G89 is our winner for this week. And she wins 150 bit shares. Congratulations to Sandra. And just going to be loading up the BitShares wallet, and new version of wallet.bitshares.org does this latency check at the start. Probably not necessary to check the latency of all 47 nodes, just pick one. Oh dear. Oh, hang on. Account's not in that interface, it's in the other one. Okay, and we have of course moved over to the new BitShares account, WeYouMe, in line with the rebranding. So we have 150 BitShares to Sandra G89. Congratulations, Sandra. First recipient of a competition from the new account. Moved everything over to the new account. Okie dokie. And starting this week is our new competition. And this week's Twitter competition is post a tweet answering the question, what type of interface do you want to use for WeYouMe and why? In one sentence. So some ideas for that would be like an image focused one, like an Instagram style, or a Reddit focused one for browsing, like boards, or a Twitter type interface that shows everything as small little rectangles. What sort of visual interface do you find to be the best for you in terms of your taste in actually browsing social content? Would it be more of like a subscription feed kind of thing where you browse it from your home feed, or do you prefer to browse content in a ranked list of people that you don't necessarily follow? So what sort of interfaces for social media do you want to use for browsing the WeYouMe protocol? So leave your answers on Twitter, of course, with the hashtag WeYouMe and @WeYouMe, and don't forget the underscore. And include a link to the WeYouMe Telegram and Discord channels. Link your posts in the competitions Discord with your BitShares address to enter. And the tweet with the most likes and retweets combined on Twitter will win 100 BitShares. The winner will be announced next week in the State of the Network. And if the winner is present in next week's State of the Network, they will win a bonus 50 BitShares. And the first valid entry will win 10 bonus BitShares and be linked in the WeYouMe State of the Network thread. So first entry that is valid and follows all of the required rules will get 10 bonus BitShares. So that moves us right along to the next part, where we have an answer from Shubs in Discord. Browsing looks good on Instagram. So like an image focused one, where it's just simply like showing an image and you scroll through. That's always a good idea. So next up we have the discussion about the private seed round. So WeYouMe is raising capital from private investors. 15% of the total WeYouMe supply is on offer to seed round investors at a price of $3 per unit. We will be having a minimum investment of $50,000 with a maximum investment per person of $500,000 US. A 10% bonus is applicable on all investments of over $250,000, and investments are illiquid until the mainnet release. And you can contact the team at harrison@weyoumi.io to arrange an acquisition of the private seed round asset, which has recently been created and does in fact use whitelisting and market restrictions to ensure that it is illiquid until mainnet release. So if you do not have enough to contribute seed round funding, that is completely fine. Thank you to all those who participated in our angel investing campaign with the Zero asset. You have been instrumental in our progress up to this point, and we are making breakthroughs every week with our VC partners here in Melbourne, and we'll be reaching out internationally on a very short time frame. So if you don't have enough to contribute seed round funding, that is completely fine. You can help by sharing this video and by introducing investors to WeYouMe, both institutional and otherwise. And we of course thank our angel investors for their ongoing support. Dow Street, Meta, and the rest of you, you know who you are. Thank you for your ongoing support of the WeYouMe project. Without it, we would not be able to continue. So thank you to all of the thank you to all of our angel investors, and we owe you a great deal of thanks every week that we continue with this project. Thank you all. Next up this week, we have the general discussion. Before we wrap this up, we'll have questions and answers. So if you have any questions for myself or the team, then you can email Harrison at Azira at WeYouMe.io for any other queries, team role applications, proposals, or business matters. And you can campaign to become a mainnet WeYouMe witness, developer, marketer, or advocate by creating a thread on Steam and posting a link into the witness, dev, marketing, or advocate Discord section. So on Discord we have some different sections for proposals to join the 4 network officer segments. So all of those positions do earn a reward in MeCoin when the mainnet is released, particularly witnesses who earn 10% of the MeCoin issuance. The others each earn 2.5% each. So witnesses are the most highly compensated role in the network offices. You can also hold BitShares, Steam, Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, and EOS in a wallet that you control to receive a share drop of WeYouMe, WYM, on mainnet release. And you can join the WeYouMe Telegram channel at t.me/WeYouMe network. So for anyone who has any questions in the Discord, we can answer those now. Does anyone have any other questions regarding anything that we discussed today? And we have Iron Monkey suggesting a Tinder style interface. Now what is actually interesting is that Tinder is essentially what has become a front-end interface for discovery of Facebook and Instagram profiles. It's become basically a way for, in many cases, particularly girls, advertising their Instagram profiles on Tinder and then just never using it. So there's a whole layer of problems that are associated with the game theory of the network, when fundamentally the demand from those two genders are not equal. And how do you resolve that? There aren't any clear answers yet. So what it's become in many ways is a way to either advertise your external profile, or on the other hand, just like waste a lot of time swiping for a lot of people. You're gonna have a separate app. So the thing is, that's absolutely possible. Not only could there be an application that basically operates as a Tinder discovery platform, with a mutual swipe being basically analogous to a hidden connection. What it can actually work right is, if this was done correctly, it could actually be an encrypted connection request that is only revealed by there has to be some sort of body in the middle. You send an encrypted request connection to a central intermediary, and then if they also detect an incoming request for the same side, then they just get matched together and decrypted and published to the network. So there could essentially be a decentralized, censorship-resistant, and immutable Tinder discovery system for WeYouMe profile accounts. What that means is that you have all the aspects of social media built into the same account, so you don't have to switch between the two. You find there's a lot less engagement when girls have got to go between one app to the next. And if they have a choice between browsing Instagram or just browsing Tinder, that's not going to play out well long term. So if you can bring the two experiences of discovery and actual browsing into the same application, then you can have something that works a lot better. I think, at least. You gotta have something that girls will want to continue using even after they've been swamped with a bunch of match requests that they don't even look at. So there's a lot of room for innovation, and I think some crypto economics can come into play as well to more closely align the incentives for both genders, because at the moment, not only do the dating app managers or the owners of dating apps have a perverse incentive to actually ensure that you don't find matches, because if you do, then you can cut off your subscription. It's not in their interest to actually help you find a partner. It's in their interest to keep you subscribed for as long as possible and show you as many ads for as long as possible. Fundamentally, dating apps are built to be something that you want to leave. Think about that. Building an app that you want to leave is not a long-term viable model, and it doesn't have the same incentives as the users. When you build something that the fundamental goal is to use for a short period of time and then leave it, you can't sustain that with advertising. You can't sustain that with membership. There needs to be some other way to monetize that, because those two things don't work when something is only supposed to be a temporary service, in the ideal case. Very, very interesting. I met, that might be a story for the after party. Handle the marketing for OkCupid. That is very interesting. We might need to talk about that. They make ridiculous money no matter what. So OkCupid, I know for a fact that they actually, don't they charge you money before you can talk, or is that another one? That's probably another one. I might be thinking of another one. But yeah, they make plenty of money, but fundamentally they don't have the users in. They're not aligned with the users' interests. They're aligned with their own financial interests. And using WeYouMe, we'll be able to make a decentralized dating app, essentially, that runs off of WeYouMe profile accounts, operates the same sort of matching algorithm, except instead of just a picture, it'll also have that user's public posting history. So you'll be able to sort of see what the user has in their public history before you actually swipe. So instead of having to write an entire bio, you'll just be able to see their public history, not private history, just public. You'll be able to see their public profile as the Tinder profile, essentially. So there's a lot less posturing and a little bit more genuine interest is what I think is the word necessary there. So does anyone have any other questions or topics I want to bring up before we wrap up the WeYouMe State of the Network for this week? Alrighty, I guess we'll finish up for the Hangout this week. I'd like to thank everybody for watching, and if you haven't already, you can subscribe to the WeYouMe YouTube channel by hitting the subscribe button down below, and you can also hit this video for a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video and want to see more exciting updates from the WeYouMe project. My name is Harrison McLean, and together we will build the next world. Thank you and good night.